Welcome to Sachii Online Academy. This is Zeko Chimana. Today, team, I'm going to take you through functions in C programming. Why functions and what are functions in C programming? So a function in C programming is a self-contained block of statements that performs a specific coherent task, or these are just a set of statements that we put together to achieve a certain task or a specific task in simple terms. So why do we need them? We need them so as we can simplify our programs. It will be easy for us to come up with the simple programs. Also, we can reduce the size of a program because we will be actually not need to keep on repeating the same statements or so. You can just create your function and then reuse it by just declaring by just calling that function. And just to call a function, you just need a one line rather than keep on repeating those statements. Also, there's issue of reusability of code. It will be much easier for us to reuse that code, since you actually need to import that function and start to use that function. You just need to take that function and just use it again by just calling it. Also, you can do a division of labor. Instead of work just as a single team, you can divide your team into a team of programmers where each and every team just need to focus on a specific task, hence creating some functions there, and then you reintegrate those functions later. So also it will be actually easier for us to maintain our code. So with all these advantages, I think it is good to go for these functions in C programming. So let's talk about the predefined functions. There are some predefined functions that you have been actually using them. You might not be actually knowing that these are functions, but there are some predefined functions. So predefined functions are those functions that actually comes with the C programming language itself. Like for example, we've got the printf here, the printf and the scanf functions. These functions actually comes with the C library. And you can actually use them by just include the standard input output header file. So I'm just going to take you through the process of declaring. There's what we call declaring a function. There's what we call, there's what we call function calling. Also, there's what we call the parameters. So we are just going to go through that. You cannot actually use a function without calling it. You cannot actually have a function without creating it or declaring that function. So let's start our program. Here I'm just going to include my library, standard input output header. This one just for printf and scanf. Then I'm going to start my main function. This is another predefined function. Then here I'm just going to use another predefined function, printf. Let me say my name is Ezekiel. See, so I've actually used the predefined function. Like this one, it's a predefined function for printing to the console, or for printing to to the user, right? So I can actually compile my code and run this code. You see, so for these functions, you don't need actually to declare them. What you need is just to use them. So you need this preprocessor directive, and then you can actually use this predefined function. Also, this is the main function, which is also the predefined function. Here I have to return a 0 here to tell the operating system that my program actually finished to execute or is completed. So here I can actually create a function. I can actually declare a function so as I can use it to print anything or to add anything. Let me create a function to add two numbers. So Here I can actually declare a function. I want it to return the result after adding two numbers, right? So let me say add numbers here. What I put here is the return type of the function. A function needs to return a certain type of data when it runs, right? Then here I'll put the parenthesis. If I just do this, I'm actually declaring a function here. This is the function declaration. This one is function declaration. This is how you declare a function in what, in a C programming. I can even compare this one. See, there's no any error. I've actually declared a function, but it does nothing because it does not have the block of code. So for you need to actually define your function to give it the functionality. So after you declare your function, now you need to actually define the function. So I can actually declare my function here. After declaring this function, let me just declare it outside this main function, which will be the, actually this one will be a global function. You can access it anywhere, right? I've actually declared it just outside my function, outside my main function, and then I want to give it the definition of this function, right? So it's int add numbers, right? Then it has to return, maybe it has to return something, and it have to return a 0 there. After this, I want it to add two numbers, right? So where these two numbers are going to come, right? Let me say just I have the numbers, right? Then I will say int a is equal to 8, int b is equal to 8, and then sum, there is another int sum which will be equal to a plus b. Here this is a program to add two numbers. Then what am I supposed to return is sum. If I do this, what I need here is just to call a function, right? If I execute this one, let me compile, let me run this code. See, there is nothing being printed here. Why? Because I've actually just declaring the function and give it some tasks to do, which is to add two numbers. But for it to be executed, you need to call a function. So there's what we call function calling. How do you call this function? It's what? It's add numbers, right? I have to call it here just like this. So if I compile, you see there is no any error here. So if I execute this one, it is not going to, it is actually going to return the value of sum here, and then it will be printed. So let me try to execute this one. Why there is nothing here? Let me say, sorry, I forgot to add the format specifier here. I forgot to add the format specifier. Let me add this, the sum of two numbers is, and it's an integer. I will have to put %d for format specifier, and then let me put this /n here. Then I'll put a comma here, and then let me again compile this, and then let me run this. You see, it have actually showed that the sum of two numbers is 16. So what is actually, how is it working here, team? It is just taking these two numbers, then add two numbers, and then it will get the value of these two numbers, and then it will return this value here, and then that value will be actually printed here. So I've actually coded this function. So without function calling, you cannot use a function in C programming. Then there's what we call a parameter here, team. Let me say I want to ask the user to enter those numbers so that we can add them, right? So I can just do it in the main function and then allow the user to enter these two values, and then I can just add them, right? So how am I going to do it? Instead of declaring these values here, these variables here, instead of declaring them here, I can actually remove all this code and put what we call a parameter to a function. These parameters are just variables that we can actually use to pass arguments to our function. So let me say int a here. You can put as many as you want here. Let me say int b. What you need is to put a comma here. Then if I compare this, there is no error. Why? Because these are variables that I've declared. They will be treated as local variables to this function, so they are in this function, right? So let me actually, whenever I'm going to call this function, I have to pass these two arguments, to pass these two values, which will be actually being inserted into these parameters. It will match this order. So here, let me declare some variables here. Int, let me say num1 for putting a number 1, and num2 for putting another number, and let me ask the user to enter these values, or I can just put them to save time. I can just say num1 be equal to 8, and then num2 be equal to 8 again, right? So what I want here is to pass these two values, which is num1, which will be actually become our a here and passed here, and then I'll put num2, which will become our b here, and then it will be passed here, then it will be added, and then it will return an integer, then we will print that here. Let me compare and let me run this. You see, we actually get our 16 here. Even if I change here and put a 2, we must get a 10 here. So you see, we have actually get a 10. So this is how do you use parameters on your functions. So what do you need to use functions in C programming? You need to know the return type of your function. You need to know the arguments that you want to put, or the parameters that your function is going to take. You need to declare that function. You need to define its board. Then later you need to call that function. That's all. So here we've actually used the int type. You can also return a void here. If you return a void, it's like it is going to return nothing. It doesn't need this return type here, which means we must move this print statement maybe inside here. Then what we do here is just calling the function, because it will be actually not returning anything. So what do we need here is just to take this, let me take this one and put it here inside this, and then I have to remove this. Then what I'm going to do, I'm going to print the sum here. You have to print sum here. After printing sum, I have to remove all this. What I only need here is just to call the function. You have to call the function, and then I'll do the printing here. So I'll just call the function and I'll pass to these values. So it will, this now will become num1, this one will become num2, though the names will be a and b, but the value in num1 will be passed here and the value in num2 will be passed here, and then later we add the value of a and b, then we print it here. So what we do, just if you declare it as void, what you need is to actually call the function, and then it will do the magic there. Sorry, what was the error there? The types void. Sorry, okay, I declared it here as an integer. I'm sorry. So let me compile. Yes, there's no error. So let me run it. You see, you get 10. So that's what that's how do you do it. I want to say thank you for watching this video.